Words of our Divine Mother. Our Divine Mother says, the grace and protection are always with you. When in any inner or outer difficulty or trouble, do not allow it to oppress you. Take refuge with the divine force that protects. If you do that always with faith and sincerity, you will find something opening in you which will always remain calm and peaceful in spite of all superficial disturbances. With my love and blessings, says our Divine Mother. Words of our Divine Mother, taken from the collective works of our Divine Mother, question and answers, year 1953, date 18th March. The child gives a quote from the question and answers quotation taken from 7th April 1929. We are conscious of only an insignificant portion of our being. Sweet Mother, you have stated this. What are these insignificant parts of our being? Says our child. For this, our Divine Mother says, almost all of them. Our Divine Mother says, there are very few things which are not insignificant. All your ordinary reactions, ordinary thoughts, sensations, actions, moments, all this is very insignificant. It is only at times when there is a flash of the higher consciousness through the psychic, an opening into something else, a contact with the psychic being, which may last for a second at that moment. It is not significant. Otherwise, all the rest is repeated in millions and millions of copies. Your way of seeing, acting, all your reactions, thoughts, feelings, all that is ordinary. And you believe you are extraordinary, particularly when you are seized by extraordinary sensations and feelings, those that you consider extraordinary. You believe you are lifted higher, nearing something superhuman, but you are quite mistaken. It is nothing but an ordinary state, deplorably ordinary. You must enter deeper. Try to see within yourself if you want to find something which is not insignificant. Question, sweet Mother. You have said that in a previous life we were together, but if we had not done yoga, couldn't we have met all the same? For this, our Divine Mother says, not necessarily. I remember the circumstance in which I said that. It was to a lady who had come here and asked me how it was that she had come here. This is a truth in a general way when those born scattered over the world at a great distance from one another are driven by circumstances or by an impulsion to come and gather here. It is almost always because they have met in one life or another, not in the same life. And because their psychic being has felt that they belong to the same family, so they have taken an inner oath to continue to act together and collaborate. Our Divine Mother says that is why, even though they are born far from one another, there is something which compels them to come together. It is the psychic being, the psychic consciousness that is behind. And only to the extent the psychic consciousness is strong enough to order and organize the circumstances or the life that is strong enough not to allow itself to be opposed by outside forces, outside life moments, can people meet. Our Divine Mother says, it is profoundly true in reality. There are large families of beings who work for the same cause, who have gathered in more or less large numbers, and who come in groups, as it were. It is as though at certain times there were awakenings in the psychic world, as though lots of little sleeping children were being called to wake up. It is time. Quick, quick, go down. And they hurry down. And sometimes they do not drop at the same place. They are dispersed. Yet there is something within which troubles them, pushes them. For one reason or another, they are drawn close, and that brings them together. But it is something deep in the being, something that is not at all on the surface. Otherwise, even if people meet, they would not perhaps become aware of the bond. People meet and recognize each other only to the extent that they become conscious of their psychic being, obey their psychic being, are guided by it. Otherwise, there is all that comes in to oppose it, all that wheels, all that stupefies, all those obstacles to prevent you from finding yourself in your depths and being able to collaborate truly in the world. You are tossed about by the forces of nature. There is only one solution. There is only one solution to find your psychic being, and once it is found, to cling to it desperately, to let it guide you step by step. Whatever be the obstacle, this is the only solution. Our Divine Mother says, all this I do not write, but I explained it to that lady. She had put to me the question, how did I happen to come here? Our Divine Mother says, I told her that it was certainly not for reasons of the external consciousness. It is something in her inner being that had pushed her. Only the awakening was not strong. Only the awakening was not strong enough to overcome all the rest. She returned to the ordinary life for very ordinary reasons of living. Outwardly, it was a funny thing that had made her come here. She was a young woman like others. She had been betrothed but not married. The man had broken off. She was very unhappy and wept much. She was very unhappy, had wept much, and that had spoiled her pretty face, dark wrinkles there. And when the heavy grief had gone, she was no longer so pretty. She was extremely vexed. She consulted people whose profession is to make you look pretty. They advised her paraffin injections in the face. After that, you don't have wrinkles any longer. She was injected with grease instead of the desired effect. She had greasy lumps here and there. She was in despair, for she was uglier than ever. Then she met a charlatan who told her that in England there was no means of restoring her pretty face. Go to India. There are great yogis there who will do it for you. That is why she had come here. The very first thing she told me was, you see how my face is ruined? Can you restore my pretty looks? I said, no. Then she started putting me questions on yoga, and she was moved. That day she told me I came to India to get rid of my wrinkles. Now what you tell me interests me. But then, why did I come? This is not the true motive that made me come here. Our Divine Mother says, I explained to her that there was something other than her external being, and that it was her psychic being which had led her here. External motives are simple pretexts used by the psychic to realize itself. External motives are simply pretexts used by the psychic to realize itself. But she was quite a wonderful person. In the beginning, she had taken an attitude of benevolence and goodwill towards everything and everybody, even the worst scamp. She saw only the good side. Then, as she stayed on, her consciousness developed. After a time, she began to see people as they were. So one day she told me formally when I was unconscious, I thought everybody was good. People seemed to be so nice. Why did you make me conscious? For this, our Divine Mother says, I answered her, do not stop on the way. Go a little further. Once one has begun yoga, it is better to go to the end, says our Divine Mother. Next date, 25th March 1953. A quote is taken from the question and answers of 1929-31. The child says, Sweet Mother, you have said you must be vigilant and see that you do not use the divine as a cloak for the satisfaction of your desires. For this, our Divine Mother says, many people accept certain theories, some of which are very convenient, and they say everything is the result of the divine will. Others say the divine is everywhere and in everything and does everything. Yet others say my will is one with the divine will. It is He who inspires me. Indeed, there are many theories, and they say that. Naturally, the ego is so alive. They do all that they want to do, saying, it is the divine who is doing it in me. Whatever is supplied by their brain is the divine will. It is not a personal inspiration. Everything is the result of the divine will. It is not I who am acting. It is the divine who is acting through me. They do all that they wish to do. There are many people like that. Therefore, I said, do not use the divine as a pretty cloak to hide your desires, says our Divine Mother. Next question from page 17. The child says, Sweet Mother, if everything comes from the divine, from Him, why are there so many errors? For this, our Divine Mother says, you must not believe that everything that happens to you in life comes to you naturally from the divine. That is, that it is the truth consciousness which is directing your life. For if everything came from Him, it would be impossible for you to make a mistake. How does it happen that there's errors everywhere? Why do things go in opposition to the divine and to what they ought to be? Because there are numerous elements which cross each other and intervene. Wills cross each other. The strongest gets the best of it. It is this complexity of norms that has created a determinism. Our Divine Mother says the divine will is completely veiled by this host of things. So I have said here, and our Divine Mother takes her book, you must accept all things and only those things that come from the divine, because things can come from concealed desires. The desires work in the subconscious and attract things to you of which possibly you may not recognize the origin, but which do not come from the divine but from disguised desires. A Divine Mother says, if you have a strong desire for something you cannot get, you project your desire outside yourself. It goes off like a tiny personality separated from you and roams about in the world. It will take a little round, more or less large, and returns to you perhaps when you have forgotten it. People who have a kind of passion, who want something that goes out from them like a little being, like a little flame into the surroundings, this little being has its destiny. It roams around in the world, tossed around by other things perhaps. You have forgotten it, but it will never forget that it must bring about that particular result. For days you tell yourself, for some days you tell yourself how much I would like to go to that place, to Japan for instance, to see those marvelous things. Your desire goes out from you. But because desires are very fugitive things, you have forgotten completely this desire you had thrown out with such a force. There are many reasons for your thinking about something else. After 10 years or more or less, it comes back to you like a dish served up piping hot. Yes, like a piping hot dish, well arranged, you say. This doesn't interest me any longer. It does not interest you 10 or 20 years later. It was a small formation and it has gone and done its work as it could. It is impossible to have desires without their being realized, even if it be a quite a tiny desire. The formation has done what it could. It took a lot of trouble. It has worked hard. After years, it returns. It is like a servant you have sent out who has done his best. When he returns, you tell him, what have you done? Why? But, sir, it was because you wanted it. You cannot put forth a strong thought without it going out from you like a little balloon, as it were. We have certain stories which are not unbelievable, like the one about that miser who thought of nothing but his money. He has hidden his hoard somewhere and always used to go see it. After his death, he continued to come as a ghost to watch over his money. Nobody would go near the place without meeting with a catastrophe. It is like that. If you have worked to bring out something, it is always realized. It may be realized even after your death, but yes. For when your body ceases to exist, none of the vibrations stops existing. They are realized somewhere. That was what Buddha said. The vibrations continue to exist, to be perpetuated. They are contagious. They continue in others, pass on to others, and everyone adds a little to them, says our Divine Mother.